28 years later, the Bone Temple has finally arrived. Let me tell you, the hype is completely justified. Picking up immediately after the events of 28 years later, this chapter puts Dr. Kelson at the front and center. His storyline takes an unexpected turn when he forms a strange bond with an alpha infected he names Samson, pushing him to believe, and perhaps dangerously so, that the rage virus might be treatable or even curable. At the same time, former protagonist Spike finds himself trapped in a nightmare of a different kind as he is unwillingly pulled into a violent, Satan-worshipping cult led by the increasingly deranged Jimmy Crystal. What begins as two separate threads slowly tightens into one brutal collision, culminating in Crystal forcing Kelson to pose as old Nick before his fanatical followers. The result is a shocking, emotionally charged ending that not only redefines the stakes of the series, but also delivers a long-awaited character return fans have been hoping for. It's intense, unsettling, and surprisingly heartfelt in ways you might not expect, but it still proves that 28 years later still has plenty of life and terror left in it. But after all the horror Spike witnesses and the discoveries Kelson makes, how does it all come to an end? How does it set up the third film? And how does Cillian Murphy's 28 Days Later character Jim, who Boyle has already revealed will return in the film, factor in? Without wasting another moment, let's discuss what happens in the Bone Temple. Spoiler alert, you have been warned. So after his rescue, Spike stays behind in quarantined Britain, where he falls in with the Jimmies, which is basically a cult built around a magnetic but deeply unhinged Satanist, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. In a brutal initiation, which is meant to prove his loyalty and earn a place in Jimmy's inner circle, known as the Fingers, Spike is forced to challenge and kill another Jimmy. Eventually, as he is pulled deeper into the cult, Spike meets several others like Jimmy Inc., who quietly questions Sir Jimmy's escalating violence, and Jemima, whose cruelty and sadism makes it clear just how dangerous life inside Jimmy's really is. Meanwhile, Dr. Ian Kelson carries on maintaining the Bone Temple, which is a haunting memorial built for those lost during the rage virus outbreak. However, during his work, he repeatedly crosses paths with a local alpha infected, who he has named Samson. To protect himself, Kelson uses a blowgun loaded with a morphine xyloxine dart to sedate Samson whenever he gets too close. Shockingly enough, over time, Samson just keeps returning, and soon Kelson realizes why. The alpha has become addicted to the morphine and is now deliberately allowing himself to be drugged. What starts as a disturbing discovery soon turns into something more hopeful, because Kelson notices that while he is sedated, Samson seems calmer, more aware, almost human again. Driven by a sense of cautious optimism, Kelson then begins experimenting, wondering if the rage virus's psychological effects can be treated or even reversed. As the tests continue, we see an unlikely bond form between the two of them. And before you know it, Samson starts to experience fragmented memories of his childhood before the infection, and in moments that feel almost miraculous, he even begins to speak. On the other hand, the Jimmies violently overrun a remote farm where a small group of survivors had been hiding, including a man named Tom and his pregnant partner, Kathy. They herd everyone into a barn, but Kathy manages to slip away unnoticed and hides in the loft. Inside, the situation turns horrifying as the Jimmies announce their plan to skin the survivors alive as a ritual sacrifice to Satan. Overwhelmed by the sheer horror of what he was witnessing, Spike stumbles outside and vomits. Jimmy Inc. follows after him, allowing him to stay out and quietly telling him there was nowhere else left to run because this is all that remains of the world. Later, Inc. goes out for a walk only to witness something surreal as Dr. Kelson was calmly dancing with Samson near the Bone Temple. Back at the farm, Sir Jimmy Crystal offers Tom a chance to join the Fingers. Desperate, Tom accepts and is forced to challenge Jemima. The fight is brutally one-sided, and Jemima easily overpowers him. Just as she was about to kill Tom, Kathy suddenly bursts from her hiding place in the loft and swings a meat hook, thus killing Jemima on the spot. Naturally, chaos erupts, and in the struggle that follows, Tom sets the barn ablaze, killing one cultist and badly burning several others, before ultimately being killed himself. Following this whole fiasco, Kathy manages to escape, but soon runs into Spike, who desperately begs her to take him with her, but Kathy panics, attacks him, and runs off on her own. Meanwhile, after being shaken and furious from losing both his followers and having his morale depleted, Jimmy turns his rage on Spike and using him as a scapegoat. Lucky for him, Ink steps in and redirects Jimmy's attention by telling him about Dr. Kelson. Intrigued, Jimmy decides to pay Kelson a visit at the Bone Temple, where he corners him and uses a chilling ultimatum that Kelson must pose as Satan, aka Old Nick, and use the act to bring the fingers back under control by the following night, or Jimmy would kill him. Terrified by Jimmy's cruelty and backed into a corner, Kelson takes a drastic step before the cult arrives as he administers an experimental cocktail of antipsychotic drugs to Samson for one last time, after the alpha-infected recently demonstrated signs of intelligence when he said the word moon. Kelson hypothesizes that the rage virus has a psychological component and, with the right medication, could be treated. So he gives the drugs to Samson and sends him on his way. To our amazement, the treatment appears to work, as it really does strip away the rage virus's grip on Samson's mind, and he grows even more intelligent. It is at an abandoned train yard where Samson begins to fully remember his past life, including a flashback to a younger version of him on a train the day the virus began ravaging Great Britain. After successfully recalling who he was before, Samson is soon attacked by the others who were infected, which basically implies that Kelson's treatment has turned his former kin hostile toward him. However, Samson still clearly has his enhanced strength and reflexes, and successfully fends off the zombies because at this point, he is both clear-headed and deadly enough to single-handedly tear through a swarm of infected, thus proving that Kelson really may have done the impossible. After this, all Samson wanted was to reunite with a friend who changed his life, and so he starts by heading in the direction of the temple with the blaring music. The following morning, Spike tried to slip away from the Jimmy's camp while no one was watching, but his escape almost ends immediately when he runs into an infected. Sure, he manages to fight it off, only to be knocked off to the ground by Jimmy Fox, who's ready to kill him for deserting the cult. Once again, Ink intervenes at the last moment and kills Fox to save Spike, so the two can return back to camp together. That same night, the Jimmys arrive at the Bone Temple for their reckoning. After Kelson secretly drugs them with a powerful hallucinogen, he then stages a bizarre fire-filled lip-sync performance to Iron Maiden's The Number of the Beast. To add on to this, he tries to embody the devil incarnate by covering his temple in flames and painting his body in the form of a skeleton as he puts on a show that absolutely stuns the cult members. At first, Kelson plays along with Jimmy's demands, using the spectacle to bring the fingers back under control. Up until now, the Doctor had no clue that his former companion Spike was amongst them, and he still had his mask on. So after his incredible performance, Kelson then gives commands to the Jimmy cult while still putting on his charade. But it's at this moment that he realizes that Sir Jimmy Crystal is trying to twist his words into a justification for slaughtering more innocent people and recruiting more bloodthirsty members. Furthermore, everything changes for him when Kelson spots Spike as the quivering cultist hiding behind a mask. Realizing what was truly at stake, the Doctor's conscience gets the better of him as he turns the performance on Jimmy, trying to manipulate the cult into turning on their leader and crucifying him instead with one final command that Jimmy Crystal must follow in the way of God's Son and be crucified on a cross. To this change of plan, Jimmy reacts instantly and fatally stabs Kelson. Naturally, the entire cult goes haywire and chaos erupts as Ink kills Jimmy's while in the confusion, Spike stabs Jimmy himself. As Kelson lies dying, Spike stays with him, offering what little comfort he can. Meanwhile, Ink, who was the only one lighting up at the order of Lord Jimmy Crystal being crucified, lunged at killing her cruel master, but not after finally revealing that his real name was Kelly. As Jimmy Inc. dispatches with the two other surviving cult members, Spike mortally wounds Jimmy Crystal with his knife, finally putting an end to the Teletubbies' loving cultists' reign of terror. Spike then goes to comfort his mentor and friend, Kelson, but Inc. makes clear that Kelson's wound is fatal and he will surely die. After some parting words and nailing a still bleeding out Crystal to an upside-down cross, Spike and Inc. take their leave, now free from a madman and his cult. As they leave, Samson enters the scene to find Kelson slowly dying and Crystal nailed to his cross. Samson thanks Kelson for helping him before carrying him away, perhaps to add his remains to the temple's monuments. Still, we don't really ever find out if Samson has been permanently cured of the rage virus's negative effects, or if the drugs he was given were a temporary solution. Meanwhile, as the evil cult leader Jimmy Crystal fades, he hallucinates Samson as Satan himself, watching as Samson carries Kelson's body away. Moments later, a horde of infected swarms the cross, tearing Jimmy apart and beating him to death. With it finally over, Spike and Kelly leave together, walking away from the Bone Temple and whatever remains of the world they survived. But that is not all. Before the credits roll and 28 years later, the Bone Temple, the film delivers a moment that we all have been waiting decades for, as Cillian Murphy returns as Jim, the original protagonist from 28 Days Later, and reassuringly, Jim seems to be doing okay, as he's living a relatively quiet, almost normal life with his young daughter, helping her study at home, which is a small but powerful hint that they are part of a fragile, functioning community, not unlike the one Spike once came from. Just as we start wondering what becomes of Selena, Jim's daughter hears chaos outside. When they step out to investigate, they spot Spike and Kelly fleeing from a group of infected. Without hesitation, Jim steps in to help. This sets up the next entry in the series to be a crossover point between the original film and the more recent sequels. It will be interesting to see how Jim factors into Spike's story, given the latter's presence as the through line of the modern films, especially given the reveal that Jim's daughter seems to be a similar age as Spike. Even if it is a brief but meaningful reunion with the franchise's roots, it perfectly sets the stage for the final chapter of the 28 Years Later trilogy, thus ultimately promising to finally bring the long-running story to a full circle. So far, it seems like 28 Years Later was clearly designed as the first step in a trilogy. Even with the third film now officially confirmed, the ending of the Bone Temple feels even more exciting in hindsight. It will be truly interesting to revisit Cillian Murphy's Jim, given he is one of the few characters who truly remembers what life looked like before the rage virus took over, thus opening up fascinating possibilities, especially in seeing how he might clash or connect with someone like Spike, who grew up in a broken world. There are plenty of other directions the next sequel could take as well. Much of that potential revolves around Samson and the fact that he has been cured. If one of the infected can be brought back, it is only a matter of time before someone tries to replicate the process, be it for better or for worse. At the same time, the sheer scale of the outbreak makes it clear that wiping out the infected entirely may be impossible. The story also leaves behind unresolved threads like Kathy, the pregnant woman who escaped the Jimmys, which could resurface in unexpected ways and complicate Spike's future. There's even the possibility of older characters like Jim being set against the newer generation of survivors. Rather than locking itself into one path, 28 years later, the Bone Temple opens the doors to countless possibilities, ultimately setting the stage for a third film that could go in several bold and unpredictable directions. Having said that, what do you guys think about the second film in this trilogy? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box down below.